panel. Jane Huger, John Idarola, Ben Carolla. All right, so big show ahead for you guys. We've got a super fun announcement in the second hour that you guys are gonna love. So it's got something to do with my t-shirt. We'll get to that later. But Ben, this is the first time, before we get started with anything else, this is the first time I'm on with you since you announced that, and you helped me out with the phrasing here, transitioning or etc.
Yeah, trans. So for anybody that's wondering, my pronouns are she, her, right? I know I don't quite look it right now. It takes actually like a lot of work to be like femme presenting, especially if you haven't done like hormones or anything. It's like a whole entire thing. But I'm really excited about it because like literally all of you awesome people in the TYT audience, everybody that works at TYT has been super fantastic and really amazing about it. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so look, I have to explain to folks who are not familiar with it that it's the same person. Okay, so yeah, because we're in the year 2022, we still have to explain that stuff. But Ben, I still need stuff explained to me because I'm old school. So as you are getting to a point where you present, do we call it transitioning? Is that what we call it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, like for a lot of people, they kind of never like consider the like transition is a process that kind of like never really ends because like, I mean, even if somebody does hormones, it'll take like literally years before like everything like completely changes. And it's kind of like, it's a long process.
Yep. And so by the way, not only same person, same galaxy brain, you can check out on twitch.tv/TYT. All right. I got actually two brains with me because John, Think Tank logo used to be a big brain. So
it did.
A small brain squished between two galaxy brains.
I think that's how the commentators on YouTube will describe it.
Trust me that some of them will. Okay. All right. Now, having said that, we got crazy stories. So, John, take it away.
We do. I think in this story, especially Cenk has an angle that he is going to be fascinated by. Okay. Earlier this week, Donald Trump canceled his planned speech on January 6th. Thanks God, because that would have been a horrible idea. But to mark the occasion, some of his supporters decided to make a pilgrimage to his home in West Palm Beach and go and sort of gather outside, show their support for him. Now, they are disappointed that he made the decision that he did. They wanted him to speak. They want him to announce that he's gonna be president in a week. They're crazy. So they're a little bit disappointed that he didn't do that. One of them, an organizer for the protest we're talking about here, says, we still consider President Trump our president. What's gone on this past year is a joke. This is not our country, our planet, or our reality. We are floating in the ether. I don't know what they think. They still believe that he's gonna become president. They believe some crazy things. They also believe one particular crazy thing, which is anything that Donald Trump tells them, because apparently they were told he would come out and see them. I mean, after all, they traveled all the way there to go see him. He doesn't have a job, so he's certainly got time, but he stiffed them. They were told that he was going to come out and say hi to them, but he never showed. So they just flew their flags and thankfully for our purposes talked into cameras, and we're gonna play some of that video for you. But before we get to the first video though, I do want to just remind you, this is hardly the first time that Donald Trump has made a very specific claim to them and not come through. This is their anniversary gathering for January 6th. And remember that while lots of terrible stuff happened on January 6th, one thing that didn't happen was Trump making good on his promise to participate in the march and the riot. He said he was gonna do it, and he didn't do it because it involved physical activity. I don't know why at this point they would believe anything he says. But regardless, we do want to find out a little bit about what they think about the country and about the world. So let's take a look at a clip of one of the protesters.
How about the 13 elite bloodlines that have robbed us all blind all our life and bamboozled us all our life? And our life has been nothing but a lie. But we stand here in truth, in his light, for what's right.
Okay, I think normally when people say in his light, I think they mean God. I'm fairly certain there he means Donald Trump. But Cenk, I know that this 13 elite bloodlines thing interested you. So tell me what you found out about that.
Yeah, I looked into it because I'm like, look, anytime they start talking about bloodlines, etc., it's gonna devolve into anti-Semitism. Okay, write it down in stone. And look, I'm gonna partly blame Democrats for this in a second. So if you're corporate Democrat or mainstream media, buckle up, brace for impact. But so first of all, are the Republicans detached from reality? Of course. Only 20% of Republicans believe that Biden was legitimately elected. So the great majority of Republicans are completely detached from reality. So we're not one of those shows that picks a side and only does marketing for them. We tell you the whole truth.
Patience. It's a virtue. They think you can put me in a box. But you can't stifle a revolution. Cenk Uygur, you started something, an idea. The truth and honesty matter above all else. And the people love you for it. And for a while, so did I. We could have stood united, a political force of reckoning upon our foes, the hypocrites, the phonies, the unjust. But you put me in this box.
Cenk! No!
You began without me. You began without me. But God as my witness, I will be the one to finish it.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing
Zero
yourself.
Cents, yeah.
Right.
When news is breaking, and when you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time. When news breaks, when news is breaking, and you like. When news is breaking, and you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time for Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich.
So now, what are the 13 bloodlines? Well, I was relieved to find out all the families on the list were not Jewish. Were some of them? Of course, right? But not all of them were. I was like, hey, that's a slight win, right? The Merovingians was there. I think they watched probably a little bit too much Matrix. But the main, of course, person and family that they thought was in charge of the whole planet is the Rothschilds, which is very old school anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about how they secretly run the world. So wait a minute, this is all Republican lunacy. What does this have to do with Democrats? Well, look, the reality is there are only a few number of people that have a massive amount of wealth in this country. What was it, 5 people now have the equivalent of 50%, or the bottom 50% of America, the same amount of money. It's just, it's stunning the income inequality that's true in America. And by the way, I think those top 5, none of them are Jewish in reality, in the real world, right? And then that class of people then give money to politicians. They're the donor class. They are not connected in any way through religion, race, ethnicity, or any of that. They're connected through another color, green, the color green. But Democrats in the mainstream media say, nope, no, that's not true. First of all, Democratic leadership thinks income inequality is no big deal at all. They just helped to kill $15 minimum wage legislation. So they, from not giving a damn to income inequality all the way through to completely denying reality that donors control politicians. Well, guys, let's be honest. They're living in a completely different reality too. That Everyone else on planet Earth thinks that the politicians care about the millions of dollars that they're getting from donors.
Yep.
And sorry, one more thing about that. Once the media says, no, black is white and white is black, and donors don't have any effect. And Nancy Pelosi, for example, has raised $1 billion. $1 billion. And the media says, no, that doesn't affect her at all. Well, that leads to people looking for solutions. And so it makes it much easier to herd the right wing into, well, you see, that isn't true. You know that isn't true. So you know what the real answer is? The 13 bloodlines and the Illuminati and Jews and et cetera. And that's why we're in this dark, dark place in American history right now.
Yeah. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, okay, first and foremost, Trump not showing up for all these people, I think it's hilarious. It's JFK Jr. all over again, and so I love it. I'm here for it. Thank you, Donald Trump, for doing that. But seriously, these conspiracy theories thrive because people feel like they don't have control. Because I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos through Amazon controls an economy within Amazon that is the size of a country in and of itself. So yeah, none of us have control over how Amazon does things, right? It's not like a democracy. So people are correct in feeling like they don't have some degree of control. And the Democrats are just saying, no, don't you see everything's all hunky-dory, this is wonderful. And then so instead of having a critique of capitalism and income inequality and all of the real material problems, money in politics, they instead just decide to focus on lizard people and dive into the deep end.
100%. It's one of the most frustrating things about these conspiracy theories is that some of them are just totally deranged, have no relation to reality. Some are almost like a foggy mirror version of reality. Like the idea that 13 specific elite bloodlines control everything is absolutely nonsensical. The idea that the wealthy control a lot of things is true. It's just not. It's not as clean and glossy as the conspiracy theory version. The idea that the rich have too much control over the economy and politics is objectively true, but how they exercise it, their relationship to different sectors of American society and the different political parties is more complex. And so what the conspiracy theorists need is an easy explanation. They are largely driven by anxiety about a chaotic world, and they require simplistic explanations. Even if in theory, you could actually care about this sort of thing. And also often their conspiracy theories are oddly detached from the best possible evidence for them. Like the QAnon people don't care at all about the actual elite pedophiles that have been discovered in high profile in the past few years, even though that is the best description of what they believe to be true. This guy with the 13 elite bloodlines, is he constantly attacking Elon Musk, or as Cenk mentioned, Jeff Bezos or any of the actual rich people? No, it's all these fake ones from books from 75 years ago. It's all nonsense. And well, it gets into other areas as well. So let's show you a little bit more. This is a woman talking about American democracy at that protest.
What is the difference between a democracy and a republic?
A democracy is mob rules. A republic is freedom, liberty, justice, all of that. The people rule.
That's no. And honestly, I was actually a TA for poli-sci courses, so I get to say, no, you fail. You did not pass that test. There are distinctions between democracy and republic, and America does have components of both. There are advantages and potential negatives to both systems, or any sort of combination of the two systems. But it is not that one inherently has more freedom and liberty. There's a certain sort of freedom and liberty to the mob rule that she pretends all democracy is. Take a look at January 6th. They were pooping on the floors. Those are people who felt very free. But anyway, Cenk, what do you think about her political explanation?
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to go as deep as the difference between democracy and a republic. She said democracy is mob rule, and a republic, the people rule. Wait, what? No, if anything, in a democracy, the people rule more. The republic puts a layer between the people and ruling. So But again, none of this has to mean anything. Words no longer have meaning. And again, I blame some of this on the establishment. I mean, how long have they divorced words from their actual meaning in Orwellian ways? When they allowed Dick Cheney to change the word torture to enhance interrogation, when they started calling anyone they opposed terrorists, and now dictators in places like Kazakhstan, as we'll cover later in the program, whenever there's a rebellion where people are seeking freedom, they call them terrorists. So since words have no meaning, she doesn't have any idea of the distinction between a republic and a democracy, nor does she care. She's just been told, and this is the most important part, guys. Now right-wingers are being told that a democracy is a bad thing. Now, why do you think their leaders are training them to say democracy is a bad thing? Do you think it's because they're going to be in favor of democracy? No, they're going to be in favor of ending democracy, and they're not going to replace it with a republic. They're going to replace it with authoritarian rule, and guess what they're going to call it? A republic. And then she's going to think it's freedom when it's the exact opposite.
Yep.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, because here's the thing. Within United States history, there's been mob rule. And when I say mob rule, I don't mean the tyranny of the majority that people talk about. I mean literal mobs. During the Reconstruction era, there were elections that were literally rigged by the Ku Klux Klan. There were elected officials that were killed and driven out of town by the Klan. And that was mob rule. And so what these Republicans really want is they just want to return to that. That's what they want. Because what they're scared about democracy, is the same reason why they're stripping away voting rights from people and purging people from voting rolls. They're just racist, and they don't want people of color to be able to vote. They don't want people of color to be represented in Congress, and they especially don't want poor folks and poor people of color to be represented in Congress. And so when there seems like there might be some demographic changes or some political changes, maybe more left-wing ideas get more popular, that's when they start storming the Capitol, and they're trying to quite literally bring back the actual mob rule that existed in the United States.
Yeah, I got to say something about that, because Ben is so right, and so glad he said those things. First of all, I mean, I forgot. Yeah, you know what mob rule is? January 6th. That's literally mob rule. It was a literal mob that stormed the gates and was chanting about hanging Mike Pence and killing Nancy Pelosi and killing their own vice president. It doesn't get any more mob rule than that. And I guarantee you that lady cheered it on. Guaranteed, right?
Well, in this,
sorry,
no, continue.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, we do have one more video. Do you want to get to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say one last thing. You know what else was mob rule? The Tulsa Race Massacre, right? Greenwood District, and so where they literally had a mob of white, again, always right wingers, go and murder all the successful black people in town and burn the place down. That was Black Wall Street back in the day. Okay, and so, and that's their guys, that's right wingers. And so they've always been in favor of mob rule, and that's why a democracy bothers them, because they're now feeling like, oh no, we might get outvoted, and we were never interested in democracy. We were only interested in power, whether we got it through mob rule, democracy, it didn't matter, but there's no way we're giving up power without resorting to violence first.
Exactly, yeah, they were willing to operate under a system with some of the trappings of democracy so long as they thought they had a good chance of winning, even if that chance was itself derived by gerrymandering and voter suppression for literally centuries and all that. What we go wrong when we assume that democracy, not big D democracy as a political system, but as a value, as a belief that is the way the system should operate, is in any way attached to the values that modern day right wingers have. It's simply not. It is something that leftists generally value, even if it doesn't produce wins for us, because we believe in equity and compassion and understanding and getting people involved and letting them live their best lives. All of those things can generate a desire for democracy. For them, it is simply a means to an end. If it will no longer produce that end, they will dispense with it, even if they still want to have a little bit of the terminology. In any event, I want to go to this video in 1 sec. I did want to read just one comment because you made the reference to the Matrix, and it was a great reference. We got to talk about the newest Matrix, by the way. But trans vampire Carmilla says they couldn't have watched Matrix. If they did, they'd claw their eyes out because it's a trans allegory, which is true. But they're also dense, so it's entirely possible that they wouldn't get it. They look at the lessons that many right wingers drew from Fight Club. Look at the way some people can watch The Last Jedi and not think it's the best Star Wars movie. People watch movies and come to weird conclusions. But anyway, one of the protesters at Trump's rally wanted to talk a little bit about the Biden White House, and here's what they had to say.
America, you guys, this is America, and we can't have somebody in the office that doesn't even know really that he is there, possibly, but also that the oligarchs, in his office are writing all his material, and he's just, verbatim, just speaking it out, and I don't think he really understands what's happening.
Again, similar to what we were talking about before, there's sort of like a frustrating kind of tenuous connection to reality, but it's cloaked in absolute insanity. The idea that he has no idea that he's even in the White House. Look, if that makes you feel better because you've been triggered by your loss in 2020 or whatever, then that's fine. The fact that you got beat by a guy who has no idea what's going on seems even more embarrassing, but sure, go off. But the idea that oligarchs behind the scenes are largely determining what political leaders do is in some ways true. The issue is that she doesn't then connect that to, well, what about when the Republicans are in charge? Then they're just awesome individualists. You literally are protesting you're gathering outside the home of a multi-billionaire. He is an American oligarch and you want him back in power. How do you not make these connections?
Yeah, it's because they never got that information, John. They listen to right-wing media, and right-wing media is filled to the rim with absolute liars. So you could tell proof's in the pudding, right? We tell you Mitch McConnell has raised nearly $1 billion. Nancy Pelosi's raised nearly $1 billion. They are raising them from oligarchs. That is completely true. Both the corporate Democrats and the corporate Republicans are 100% corrupt. And by the way, you know who else raised tons of money from corporations and oligarchs? Donald J. Trump. So you know who doesn't? Bernie Sanders. So progressives actually do not take money from corporate PACs. Donald Trump does. Nearly every Republican does. There are some now populists like Matt Gaetz who don't, okay? See, we're honest, we're fair. And by the way, that video of that particular woman, it really wasn't that wrong. I mean, does Joe Biden have any power? No, not really. I don't think he can veto his own donors at all. I think his donors can veto him. So then is he really president? The donors have not. Look, I'll believe Joe Biden's president the minute he passes a bill that the donors don't want. It's never happened. It's never gonna happen, okay? And it's not about Joe Biden. That was also true of Trump. That was also true of Clinton and Obama. Oh my God, I said Obama. Oh no, every media person attacked me. I said Pelosi, every media person attacked me. It's partly this mainstream media that's driven the right wing crazy, because are the oligarchs in charge? Of course they are, right? And so the problem with the right wing media is that they pretend that the most corrupt people in the country, like Mitch McConnell, which actually, by the way, now they're pretending that less, to be fair, right? And Donald Trump, somehow when they take corporate PAC money, they're angels. You turn to cable news, they say when Pelosi takes corporate PAC money, she's an angel. They're both obviously lying.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part about it is this narrative that they build around like strategy, right? Like, and that's the most infuriating lie, because one of the ways that they trick people, like, because random voters who are centrists, they say like, oh, we really care about healthcare, we really want all these things, but you see, Nancy Pelosi is such a smart galaxy brain that she has to take that corporate PAC money, you see, because it's such a good strategy. And then they put out these things like the rental assistance program, where it was aggressively means tested and ended up being very slow. And with these compromise policies that have these weird random flaws that are built into them as sort of compromises, actually weaken the policy, make them less popular, and lead to even more people feeling alienated and left out by the system.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. Actually, I want to give it to one of our members. Happily Vax wrote it. Well, if Trump is still president, he cannot run again in 2024. That's actually, of course, constitutionally true, but they treat the Constitution as a punchline, right? They don't even know what a Constitution is. If you ask them, you know, is the U.S. Constitution the same thing as the Bible? I bet you like half of Republicans say yes. If you ask them, is the Constitution in the Bible or the Bible in the Constitution? Like 85% of them will answer one or the other, not realizing, duh, it's obviously a trick question, right? They have no earthly idea. They haven't studied civics. They don't know anything about our country. All they want is power. And by the way, guys, let's note the deep irony of that. They're like, can you believe the oligarchs are in power? It should be us. Wait, shouldn't it be all of us? Shouldn't it be a democracy? Shouldn't we rule together? Isn't that the whole point of America? And right now, the right wing's answer is a resounding no. No, and again, to be fair, the establishment's answer is also no. It should only be the oligarchs who completely control policymaking right now.
Well, why don't we take our first break? Lots to get to after this.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding, because this is C-SPAN, and anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a. Call us now at Simon Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before. TYT, Cenk, John, and Ben with you guys. John, go.
Okay, let's do it. A recent poll shows that a majority of voters believe that members of Congress should not actually be trading individual stocks, in large part because of the access they have to secret early information that can inform their financial decisions. But while that might not surprise you, how popular that position actually is just might. as well as how unpopular it is amongst those in Congress. So 3/4 of voters overall agree the members of Congress should not be able to trade stocks while serving in office. This is a survey commissioned, by the way, from the conservative advocacy group Convention of States Action. So 76% of voters believe that lawmakers and their spouses have an unfair advantage in the stock market. Just 5% of respondents approved of members trading stocks, while 19% gave no opinion. That's about as overwhelming a response to a poll question that I've ever seen. Now, that's just one poll, but we can put it in the context of we've talked about this for months. We know generally what people think. But here's the surprising part, not the 76% overall, but that it's 70% of Democrats, 78% of Republicans, and nearly 80% of independents believe that. So I wanna pause there. Like, the fact that it's bipartisan would be surprise enough. The fact that there's actually a larger percentage of Republicans, I mean, look, when you really think about it, I think it sort of makes sense from a certain point of view of conservatism, as well as the fact that this isn't the sort of issue that Fox News has really weaponized over the past couple of decades. So it's not a thing where a random conservative being asked about this can just think, okay, what did Kilmeade tell me to think? They might have to actually cross, interface the actual issue they're being talked about with their value system. But this is looking like, based on this is an issue that in theory could be a big winner if any politicians weren't financially incentivized to hold a very different position than the vast majority of Americans.
Right. Well, before we get to Nancy Pelosi's point of view on this, and then the media will of course adopt whatever her point of view is and repeat it ad nauseum because she is their queen. Let's just clarify a couple of things. First of all, you've heard me say on this show a number of times, I actually think the Republican voters are ahead of the Democratic voters in figuring out how bad corruption is in this country. And boom, there it is, told you. A slightly bigger percentage of Republicans than Democrats think that corruption in terms of the insider trading in Congress is worse. And so why is that, by the way? Democrats are supposed to be the working class party, et cetera. It's because the greater percent, I looked this up for a different reason today, but a much greater percentage of Democrats believe the mainstream media. And the mainstream media tells you the powerful and the elite are awesome. They never do anything wrong. Insider trading is fantastic, and you should never question the powerful. So unfortunately, a decent number of Democrats have totally internalized that, and that's a cult in and of itself. But overall, and other told you so is still the overwhelming majority of the country says, yeah, we hate corruption. We hate the politicians making money off the information they have and we don't have, and that's an unfair advantage. And one more lie that it exposes about mainstream media is the mainstream media claims they love bipartisanship. Oh my God, they've agreed to an infrastructure bill that is totally laden with corporate pork. I mean, bipartisan, I love bipartisanship. Well, great, then you guys should be thrilled about this. We have overwhelming bipartisan agreement. By the way, independents support it the most because independents, part of the reason why they're independents is they can't stand either party, and they realize both parties are corrupt, right? So they have the highest number. So, but it doesn't matter, we all agree, boom, bipartisanship, we've got it. Only 5% of the country disagrees. So is the media demanding action on this? No, of course not. The Queen has said that it is perfectly acceptable, so they're moving on.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that like one of the things that I've seen when I've worked on campaigns in the past, and especially doing like caucuses and stuff like that, is there's a contingent of the Democratic Party, that is to say Democratic voters, who have two beliefs. The first belief is that they themselves are a very smart person, and the other is that Democrats elect very smart people. And the problem is when you have this internal belief that you're unquestionably a smart person, is that if anybody comes in with a new idea or something different, you're scared of your new idea being criticized and then people questioning, oh, is this person really smart? And so they tend to point to the person with the most authority around them and say, well, this person, well, Nancy Pelosi must be smart, right? I mean, she's the Speaker of the House. Of course she's smart. So I'm going to say what Nancy Pelosi says. And my frustration is that from my experience, those are some of the most involved people. Like those are the people who like really make it their business to be like local officials within the Democratic Party, to always show up to caucuses and to definitely show up to primaries. And they just have this sort of mentality of, we should elect smart people. We should vote for Pete Buttigieg because he knows 7 languages. I mean, but not really. Don't speak Swedish to him, you know, like, and that sort of mentality, I think, is one of the reasons why there's more Democrats that are willing to say, oh, I'm sure there's some sort of galaxy brain reason why Nancy Pelosi is trading in the stock market. You know, it's just because she really is buying into America. That's what it is. You know, it's definitely not corruption.
Yeah. So we're gonna show you Pelosi's clip, but I've just gotta say, Ben's show is called Galaxy Brain, and I was a Galaxy Brain pro. I had not heard that before, and that is exactly right. I mean, it resonated with me instantly. Almost every so-called moderate Democrat I know, they're obsessed with being smart, and that the people in power are so smart. Oh, Jen, how could you possibly know? I mean, they are the great and holy, powerful people. They're the smartest people on earth. And what you connected in terms of that's why they're so afraid of new ideas. It's brilliant, Ben. Exactly right.
Exactly, and a great plug for the show. I need to start slipping the damage report into my commentary. I keep forgetting that. Okay, so really fast, let's go to that video. Here's Nancy Pelosi explaining her incredibly unfinancially biased position on stock trading amongst members of Congress.
Should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to this second one. Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
So it might occur to you watching this that that's a stupid point because of course we're not in a free market, but it's an especially stupid point considering exactly what she's being asked about, because the entire point is that you all have access to secret information. It is by its very nature not a free market. It's a very, very unfree market when you're making decisions to benefit yourself financially. Whether those are just having secret information, which then warps Wall Street since you can act on these things and regular people can't because they're not in these meetings, or when you're potentially actually choosing to pass or not pass certain types of legislation or stuff legislation with pork for certain industries and not others to benefit yourself as well. And that is on top of the insane corruption of allowing you to be handed large sums of money by individuals or corporations. None of this is acceptable to any regular people, as is evidenced by the poll we showed you. The only issue is that everyone who's in a position of power, largely, aside from a couple people who talk about these issues a lot, like AOC talks about individual stock ownership, Elizabeth Warren does. Other than that, they're all in favor of her position. Maybe they won't come out and say it, and they won't bumble their answer as much as she does, but they hold the same position, and why wouldn't they? It's in their own financial interest to do so.
Yeah, well, look, let me do a damage report on that video. Oh,
you young Turk, you.
Okay, no, seriously, I just have a quick comment to make, and it's doubling down on what John said. You remember that all this came up originally because the senators were caught doing insider trading when they had information about COVID that the public didn't. And instead of warning the public about the health dangers, et cetera, they went and made millions of dollars in stock trades. So that is the exact opposite of a free market when you have an unfair advantage. So Nancy Pelosi acts like a Republican there, where words have no meaning, and she lives in an alternate reality where the opposite of a free market is actually the free market. Since she said that, it's never been an issue because the Queen spoke, so all the Democrats were done with it. The Republicans love the corruption, and the media said, well, our Queen has spoken, so obviously we'll now lay down.
Yeah. Ben, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like, the real thing is, how can you be a fair arbiter of legislation if you have a buy-in, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing, right? If they were investing in companies that would have profited off of the pandemic getting worse, where are they gonna stand on doing anything about the pandemic? If they're talking about rolling out like protections for renters, right, during a pandemic that people might lose their income, they might get evicted. How can they fairly craft any type of legislation if they're landlords themselves, right? A lot of elected officials are themselves landlords that try to evict tenants, if not directly, then indirectly through like the stock market, like real estate investment trusts, right? Like these are tools, right, that like they have access to. They own all of these things. So I mean, really, at this point, like, why are we giving pensions to people who are, you know, deeply invested in this economy? We're supposed to pay them so that they're not getting money in other places, and it's absolutely like pathetic and ridiculous that the United States is in this position where these companies, to a certain extent, don't even need to bribe the politicians, right? Because the politicians are profiting in the same way that the companies are personally through their stocks.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, as Canadian in Hawaii made a great point, stock in Congress should be like playing the lottery. You can't participate if you or your immediate family works for the lottery company. Simple. And that's a great point. By the way, so, you know, when there was a big focus over the past couple of congressional cycles about, you know, campaign finance and corporate donations and things like that, there were pledges to not accept these sorts of donations. So whether it's from particular industries, like there was the no fossil fuel money pledge, or just in general to not accept donations from corporations. Is there any sort of pledge to not, you know, to not participate in individual stock ownership, to only play the market, you know, in the broad sense, you know, mutual funds and those things like that? Like that's an obvious, we should be putting them to the question on this topic and finding out where they stand. It is inarguably corrupt to use the information you have, and yet they largely, aside from Nancy Pelosi, are never required to even talk about it.
You know, John,
I don't know, I feel like we should push for that.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea at all. And for one of the reasons why, by the way, is if you ask Republicans to participate, because remember, they agree more than Democrats do in terms of the voters. They would probably think, oh, this is easy. We'll love doing this, because all the Democrats will say no, and all the Republicans would be super happy to sign on to this pledge. And they will have a rude awakening when they realize not a single Republican politician wants to sign on to this, because they're just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than the Democrats.
Yeah, we should work on that. Anyway, I think we should take our second break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the protests, already deadly, potentially turning even more deadly in Kazakhstan, and more after this.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, you know, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? And I go, what are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong, I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the f? You said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Bergquam.
Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join, and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Ben with you guys. John, take it away.
Okay, let's do it. This week, Kazakhstan has been experiencing protests as a result of price controls being removed for liquefied natural gas, which resulted in the cost of this fuel nearly doubling. It's incredibly important in Kazakhstan, and so people were infuriating. That is sort of a layer on top of long simmering concerns about political issues, economic issues, and thus protests have come forth. As a result of days of protest, violence has increased, with protesters being violently attacked, even killed already. And that was before the president of Kazakhstan put out a statement ordering police to shoot protesters with no warning. They were already seemingly perfectly willing to do that, but now they have the stamp of approval of the political leadership of Kazakhstan. To catch you up a little bit, the protests began just this last weekend in a city with historical import in terms of past protests in Kazakhstan. It spread across the country, including to the former capital. We want to show you a little bit of what this has looked like, so take a look at this.
Across this vast country, scenes of tension and turmoil. In Almaty, running battles lasted on into the night. The police struggling to maintain control in this Kazakhstan's biggest city. This is the fourth day of protests. What began as demonstrations over energy prices now morphing into something more serious. They said Kazakhs wouldn't take to the streets, says Rafiq, but we've grown tired, we've had enough.
And now as a response, the police have become increasingly violent. There is this multinational security force that has moved in. The protesters have been fairly clear about their political aims, both in terms of price controls on that fuel, as well as political reforms that they'd like to see. Obviously, the regime is not interested in that, and thus now we have this change in policy. This is a video we're going to show you right now of the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, talking about what he wants the police to do.
Террористы по-прежнему наносят ущерб государственному и частному имуществу, применяют оружие в отношении граждан. Правоохранительным органам и армии мною дан приказ открывать огонь на поражение без предупреждения. Нам пришлось иметь дело с вооруженными и подготовленными бандитами, как местными, так и иностранными. Именно с бандитами и террористами. Поэтому их нужно уничтожать. И это будет сделано в ближайшее время.
So it has taken less than 1 week to take these people protesting over fuel prices and turn them into armed bandits and terrorists. And of course, if you call them all armed bandits and terrorists, you don't have to listen to their concerns. It doesn't matter if maybe legitimately there are some people involved in the protests who have engaged in acts of violence. It might be a small percentage. It will now be used to tar literally all of them. Or there are serious concerns about the possibility that planted provocateurs have been engaging in limited acts of violence to justify the responsive violence that we've already seen and look like it's going to be even worse in the near future. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so we as in America started this nonsense about calling all of our opponents terrorists, and it will not end. So now authoritarian leaders all across the world, their favorite talking point is anyone who opposes them, terrorists. So, and their second favorite talking point is these are foreigners coming in to meddle with what we're doing here, and so the foreigners came in right as the prices went up in your country. Well, that's a nice coincidence. Look, by the way, it's not like it doesn't happen. The CIA has done it a number of times. By the way, the Russians have done it in other countries at different times. They both do it, right? And CIA used to do it all the time. They do it now, but they just suck at it, okay? So it's not impossible, but so then you look into the details. Number one, you see, no, it was clearly an uprising of popular people based on all the news reports, the videos you see, the interviews that you see, and the facts on the ground of what caused it, right? So when you see a manufactured CIA coup in Latin America, for example, we can show you the telltale signs of it. They don't seem to appear here. And then the last part of it is very important. So the Chinese say, the Russians of course say, attaboy, and they send in the troops. We'll get back to that in a second. The Chinese have a border with Kazakhstan, but much more importantly, have multi-billion-dollar energy deals with Kazakhstan. So they say, attaboy, yeah, go crush those protesters, I mean terrorists. And America doesn't seem to mind much. Why? Chevron has a giant deal in Kazakhstan. So all the people that stand to make billions of dollars are A-okay with this obvious repression and, gross behavior. I mean, here's a president that said, shoot to kill without warning. But hey, as long as everybody's making money, there probably isn't gonna be any difference at all.
Yeah, I think one of the most terrifying aspects of this is the fact that this is probably going to be happening in more places, right? Energy prices increasing, and instead of shifting to like renewable energies or anything like that, they will put in place austerity measures and then use violent force to maintain those austerity measures. And like as we see a growing income inequality and increased energy consumption due to things like cryptocurrency mining, you'll see like the rich people who want to see that like increased cryptocurrency mining, increased energy consumption. You are going to want, you're going to see a lot more of this basically like relentless consumption, refusal to switch to like renewable energies. And then the austerity measures when they come, like if anybody protests it, this violent force. And it's sort of a tale as old as time because the United States has done this to other countries all over the world. But as climate change sort of accelerates these crises and income inequality accelerates around the world, you're basically going to have world leaders who are going to have incredibly rich people that are like, yeah, this is fine. Don't care about poor people worrying about gas prices or anything like that. Do whatever you need to do. And so to me, I see this and I kind of see like what might come. And I see the United States having sort of created a model for countries to do this.
Yeah, and just to get out in front of people who operate in perpetual bad faith. I'm only specifically speaking for myself, but I have a feeling that Cenk and Ben probably agree with me in utilizing our progressive values and advocating for the economic and physical well-being of the protesters in Kazakhstan. That is in no way saying that we should be invading to fight the Russian security forces. You shouldn't have to put out those sorts of caveats. But the internet is a cesspool, and so you do have to, unfortunately. I want them to not be shot. I want them to be able to actually make a living. I want them to be able to participate in the internet during these protests, those sorts of things. The same sorts of values I have for people here in America, I also weirdly believe should be given to people in other countries. But that does not mean that I advocate for an invasion of that country by the US military, just to be clear in advance of those sorts of things.
Well, John,
anyway,
I will pick up on that real quick. Yeah, so we condemn brutal authoritarian leaders all across the world, including here in America. But there are some people who see the stormtroopers coming in from Russia to crush a rebellion seeking freedom. And they will very likely say, attaboy, oh no, this authoritarian leader, he probably represents 95% of the people of Kazakhstan. Oh no, when Putin sends in 2,500 troops, I believe they're peacekeeping troops. Yeah, No, only America does bad. When other authoritarian leaders do bad, that doesn't count at all. They're just lovely, peaceful people. I hear that's what award-winning journalists say. You can go and ask him, by the way. Go ahead, ask him if Putin is doing something wrong here. I guarantee you they kiss his ass.
Yeah. Why don't we move into our last story of the hour?
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
2.5 years. I just started because she got me into it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for like, political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew.
So I was immediately in love with the show.
And then I haven't missed a live show since then.
10 times a day, I watched the show in the morning. Whenever I had a bad day in high school, Young Turks.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Steve Bannon, for his Real America Voice, has a field correspondent named Ben Bergquam, who regrettably, like so many Americans these days, has recently come down with COVID, and in fact has a serious case of it, is in the hospital receiving oxygen. Now, for some right-wingers, experiencing how bad COVID can be an enlightening, eye-opening experience that provides a new perspective or empathy. He is going to go in a slightly different direction. And here's a bit of video of him talking about who he's actually angry with following getting COVID.
I've been on a ventilator, so I'm praying, thank you, Lord. My angels are with me. I absolutely know it. God wins, but the Democrats have to be held accountable. China has to be held accountable. Antifa and BLM, who terrorized our country for 4 years, have to be held accountable. Where's BLM? Where are Antifa? Where are they now? They were simply used by the Democrats to steal the election, to intimidate judges, to intimidate politicians, and to intimidate the American people to shut up and sit down. That's why we still have people in Guantanamo, DC, being terrorized right now, tortured right now. They don't care about the actual truth. They don't care about fixing the country. If they did, they would have held China accountable for this. If they did, they would have held BLM and Antifa accountable.
Okay, like with a lot of right-wingers, there's just a mishmash of a lot of different things all thrown in there. I think he's mad at Biden and China specifically for COVID because they all believe that it's like a bioweapon that China has introduced to America. And for some reason, they don't accompany that view with the belief that thus we should take it seriously and vaccinate or anything. He's also mad at BLM and anti-fascists. He wants to know where they are. Well, presumably, since they were the only ones rioting at the Capitol, they're the ones that are locked up. And yet, for some reason, he seems to think they're patriots. It's so weird. It's like this thing where like they're Antifa until they get to the prison, they shut the gate, and then they become patriots. It's really weird. But anyway, I actually feel bad that he got COVID and that he's on a ventilator. That's terrible. I lost a family member to COVID. I know how terrible it is. I wish that he and others like him would learn, but I'm guessing at this point that that's not going to happen. He put out a tweet recently saying, this is today. With everything I've gone through these last 2 weeks, I can unequivocally say, I thank God I didn't get vaccinated. He's on a ventilator with COVID. Now, I don't know for sure that if he had been vaccinated, it would have been a less serious case, but that is what all of the science tends to say. He believes that he's like the only thing he's got going for him is that he didn't get vaccinated. Cenk, I don't know, can you make any sense of that?
Yeah, he's an idiot. There, I explained it completely. So I'm going to say something that'll bother some people first, and then we'll get to his incredibly absurd comments. He says since he apparently survived, God wins. So how about the nearly 800,000 people who didn't survive COVID in America? Did God not win on those? How about the 5 million dead all across the world? Did God not win on those? No, it doesn't matter. Anything that doesn't affect me doesn't exist. Yeah, God only cares about you, schmuck of the world. Okay, that's probably true. Ridiculous. And then, okay, I get it, the anti-Asian stuff. Oh, it came from China, but John makes a brilliant point. Well, if it's a bioweapon from China, why don't you defend yourself, jackass? Secondly, remember when the Republicans used to talk about personal responsibility? This idiot doesn't get vaccinated. He gets really sick because he didn't get vaccinated, just like the scientists told him, just like the doctors told him. Where does he rush to, by the way? He rushes to doctors. What happened? I thought you didn't believe in doctors. All of a sudden he said, oh, please, doctor, save my life. Oh, all of a sudden, right? God didn't win, doctors won. You should get on your knees and thank those doctors who you called liars on your show over and over again. All 99.99% of doctors say get vaccinated, okay? And here's this jerk after having survived because of doctors that then turns around and says, no, it's Black Lives Matter that did it. Okay, which of course is the last and most salient point here. I mean, what a bunch of lunatics. He said, where's BLM? What the hell do they have to do with your COVID? I mean, if you asked me to find a way to blame black people for his condition, I couldn't have done it. I mean, I don't know what fantasies you have to conjure up to get there, but he got there instantly. He's like, oh, you know who's at fault for me being an idiot? Black people. All right, if you say so, brother. Okay, they're just all so deeply, stupidly racist. I can't stand them.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the note of like, he's complaining about why aren't these leftists taking COVID seriously? They are. They're getting vaccinated, wearing masks, staying inside, avoiding public spaces. Like, leftists are taking it seriously. I mean, unless the only leftist this person is paying attention to is like Jimmy Dore, right? Like, leftists are taking COVID seriously, okay? And like, when it comes to the intersection with Black Lives Matter, I know a lot of anti-racist activists who were talking about the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on people of color in the United States of America because of the air pollution that they have to deal with because of our racism in where we put like polluting factories and like the racism in employment and the fact that a lot of people of color are doing service work that leads to more exposure to COVID-19. So like, they're taking it seriously, and they're organizers that have been talking about this for 2 years now. So I don't know where this guy's been.
Yeah. Well, it looks like despite, doing absolutely nothing to protect against this, Ben is so far alive. Hope so. Hope gets through this totally fine. But others who share some of the same ideology recently have not. We don't have graphics for this, but Doug Kuzma, 61-year-old podcasting conspiracy theorist, apparently caught COVID at an Alex Jones, Eric Trump, and Michael Flynn attended superspreader conference, and following 10 days in a hospital, succumbed to COVID, an absolute tragedy and a needless tragedy. Kristen Welker, who's a leading figure in the QAnon conspiracy theory, who says that only idiots get vaccinated, has now, as you're probably already predicting, died of COVID. Another needless tragedy. Both of these are just very recently, and you can add them to a list of many, many figures in conspiracy theory circles and right-wing media and right-wing pastors as well, who have advocated for doing nothing in the face of COVID and then have actually, true believers all, given their lives for it.
Yeah, and this idiot wakes up from his ventilator and goes, where's BLM? Where's BLM? No, you should have been asking, where's the vaccine? Can I pretty please get it? You moron, you're lucky you survived. I'm not sure the rest of the planet is.
I think that's all the time we have.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody check out Galaxy Brain, Ben Bergquam. Thanks for being on, we appreciate it. And John, Damage Report, everybody's already checking it out, but definitely make sure you're watching it. Much love, guys. Big announcement coming up when we come back.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT army.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Frank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think, one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army, there might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
Across the map are going to be so tight and so close that it is likely going to be very difficult to call this on election night.
The twin forces behind the Biden candidacy, the billionaires
and the Bolsheviks.
Arizona, 19 million. For the vice president, 9 million, a little over 9 million for President Trump.
We are desperate for Donald Trump to not be president anymore because he's fascist and is a threat to our democracy. And we said that from day one. Yes, we want Biden to beat Trump. Is that clear enough?
It is increasingly difficult for the American public to get any sort of truth.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that. People are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different waves. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry? Drop it. All right, power panel. Jake Uger, J.R. Jackson, Lucid Fox. Lucid, this is the first time I'm hosting with you. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really well, actually. I just got back from getting my third shot of Moderna. A little sore, but doing all right otherwise.
All right, sounds good. Oh, right, it's registering right here. You're on the grid now with your microchip. I see it. By the way, you can check out Lucid at 6 a.m. Pacific time. Is that right? Wow, that's early.
That's right. Yeah, I'm an early boy.
Twitch.tv/LucidFox with 2 X's. Okay, don't forget the second X. All right, now we got a fun announcement for you guys. Well, you know, you guys sometimes ask for stuff. It's tough to get things done. We don't have a lot of resources, and we try to do the best we can. And the other day, Fractured Dragon tweeted at us. Let me just say, J.R. Jackson should have his own daily show. We need to make this happen. Well, easy for you to say. And now, easy for me to say. Whoa, no, here comes J.R. Jackson. Okay, what we're gonna do is a 10-week test series. This is what we do for every new show. And yes, it's gonna be JR's show. It's gonna be called The Watch List. And it's gonna start on Monday, January 24th. Look at those sexy graphics. All right, I like it. And so, of course, you guys are familiar with JR rated videos. That's pretty much all the videos we run. JR's been doing that for only about 20 years. And he's got expertise on race and class in American society, corporate influence in politics, political corruption, police brutality, and the list goes on. He's gonna be joined by other TYT hosts, including myself on the first show, live daily at 9 a.m. Pacific, that's noon Eastern, okay? Our first show then, even earlier than Damage Report, noon Eastern. And you're gonna check it out at youtube.com/watchlistTYT. In fact, if you wanna support JR, make sure that you're subscribing on youtube.com/watchlistTYT, facebook.com/watchlistTYT. And it is a test series, so we really gotta try to get those subscriber numbers, etc., up so that we can do this right. JR, are you excited?
Yeah, bro, excited, excited. I want to tell you a story because I wanted to say it when it happened. I think it was one of the specials we did, and you asked, so what is it you want to have in the next year or something like that? And it was like the last second thing. And I was like, I'm not gonna say the whole show thing. I'm just gonna go, we started with Wolfpack and who knows how that was gonna end up being, and look what we got. I think that was the answer I gave. And as soon as we went off, it was me, you, and Aaron. I remember Psaki was on. And as soon as we got off, I said, damn it, why didn't I say, Cenk, when's the show coming? When's the show coming? It's because the show is coming, it's here. What's up, you guys? Hey, we're here. I'm still working on the camera thing, you guys. The watch list with J.R. Jackson. Look at this, man. All of that stuff Cenk was talking about, you guys know what I like to get into. You guys know the type of angles I start to go to. You know what things I say on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. Except we're gonna do it live and in person. We're gonna run through videos. We're gonna show you guys what it is that you need to see and pay attention to every day. Politics, social, media, a little bit of sports. Yes, keep it real. You guys know me as well, but we're gonna do this for real and we're gonna do it fun. I'm excited. I'm absolutely excited. And then the day we're starting is the day before my birthday. I mean,
So January 24th, I'll be his first guest, for better or for worse. He'll have better guests later. Okay, but go subscribe now, all right? YouTube and Facebook.com at watchlist TYT, watchlist TYT, okay? And in honor of the show being announced, JR, I have my JR rated t-shirt on, which also debuted today on shoptyt.com.
That's lovely. That's a cool shirt. Somebody's been wearing that like every time they're on the air. This guy who has like all this self-promotion problems. And who wears their own name on their chest?
Yeah, well,
I do.
So do I, brother. Join the party. So it just dropped today. So now you can do it as well. Shoptyt.com. So support JR in every way you can, and it's going to be an awesome show. Can't wait.
When you're walking around with that shirt on at the grocery store and someone says, "What's JR rated?" Is this guy like in some filthy videos? Maybe. You gotta watch and find out.
All right, fun for everybody. All right, now.
Oh man, look at this.
And having said that, now JR, take it away.
Let's do it. Senator Ted Cruz, he's begging Tucker Carlson to forgive him, please, because he had a short moment of telling the truth as he was speaking at a Senate Rules Committee hearing just on Wednesday, the day before the anniversary of January 6th riots. But I'm gonna let you guys see exactly how he got himself in this trouble, because he didn't call them riots. He didn't call them insurrectionists. He had another word for them. So this is the clip from that hearing that got him into the first trouble that leads him to the point he's at just as today. So let's listen to this.
We are approaching a solemn anniversary this week. And it is an anniversary of a violent terrorist attack on the Capitol, where we saw the men and women of law enforcement demonstrate incredible courage, incredible bravery, risk their lives to defend the men and women who serve in this Capitol.
If you couldn't really tell where the egregious term was, it was terrorists. Terrorists. A terror attack on January 6th. It's a solemn week coming up. Well, Tucker Carlson wanted nothing to do with this rhetoric, and he responded immediately here.
Conservative Republican senators. What are they busy doing? Well, they're busy repeating the talking points that Merrick Garland has written for them. Here's one example. He doesn't use a single word by accident. Every word Ted Cruz uses is used intentionally. He's a lawyer. He described January 6th as a violent terrorist attack. Of all the things that January 6th was, it was definitely not a violent terrorist attack. It wasn't an insurrection. Was it a riot? Sure. It was not a violent terrorist attack. Sorry. So why are you telling us that it was, Ted Cruz?
Speaking directly to Ted, why are you telling us that that's what it was? So Tucker Carlson's begun the onslaught, but don't let him be the only one, because once Tucker Carlson, the seemingly new de facto leader of the Republican Party, once Donald Trump finishes screwing things up, Steve Bannon said, hey, don't forget about me. I like to get in on everything that's said. So on his show, he said, my problem with the gutless Republican is with the gutless Republican Party. They will not take a stand. This is why we've won more elections than we've lost, and we've lost the country in the process. Sorry, Steve, that's actually not the reason why, but I hear you're jumping on Ted Cruz and his mention of terrorism and terrorists on that. So at this point, Ted Cruz is panicking. He doesn't know what to do. As we've seen before, when he gets himself in some trouble, he's like, maybe I can go to the money people and that'll help me out a little bit. But before that, he's got to make sure he goes to the source, to the kingmaker. He goes on Tucker Carlson's show last night and grovels. Please, let's watch this one.
So I guess there are a lot of dumb people in the Congress. You're not one of them. I think you're smarter than I am. And you never use words carelessly. And yet you called this a terror attack when by no definition was it a terror attack. That's a lie. You told that lie on purpose, and I'm wondering why you did.
Well, Tucker, thank you for having me on. When you aired your episode last night, I sent you a text shortly thereafter and said, listen, I'd like to go on because The way I phrased things yesterday, it was sloppy and it was frankly dumb. And
I don't buy that. Whoa. I don't buy that. Look, I've known you a long time, since before you went to the Senate. You were a Supreme Court contender. You take words as seriously as any man who's ever served in the Senate. And every word you repeated that phrase. I do not believe that you used that accidentally. I just don't.
Straight up. I just don't. Shut up, Ted. Shut up.
Okay, look, I can't love that anymore than I already do. I think it's going to have a big downside later, okay, which I'll explain in a minute. But first, Cruz coming in, he already had his beta face on. Like when he's about to grovel, he does this. So he had that beta face ready to go, and then Tucker goes, bam, backhanded slap right across the face. And he's like, you're gonna see him grovel in a second. It's great. But I'm gonna give ironic credit here. That's how you're supposed to treat a politician. You're not supposed to kiss their ass if you're a reporter. You're supposed to challenge them. And so that was so jarring because the exception proves the rule. You know, you watch my interviews with many politicians, including ones I agree with. Ro Khanna, it was a good recent example. You watch the Tulsi Gabbard interviews. You watch a lot of these interviews, and you're supposed to aggressively ask them to explain what they're doing. And so that's what Tucker did there, and I think that's totally fair. What was surprising is Cruz's reaction, which you'll see more of in a second. But I'll also say this. Look, I don't love the word terrorist because it's so misused and overused. So I'd rather not have anybody be called terrorist. It's so silly overall, right? Everyone who doesn't like someone calls them a terrorist, right?
Or Hitler.
But they were definitely not terrorists, Tucker said. Well, they did break into a government building for political purpose, attacked police, people died, and they chanted about murdering people. Let's put it this way. If there was a group of several thousand Muslim men who had broken into the Capitol, chanting, by the way, this same exact thing, hang Mike Pence, and had killed some people along the way, do we think Tucker would have paused before calling them terrorists? Same exact actions. You know he wouldn't have. You know it.
Before we jump, Lucid, I'm gonna let you jump in and get more thoughts on this. I wanna get to that last half of him groveling and trying to get Tucker back on his side. Because there was one section where he did kind of mention that Tucker, which I cut out from this, but he was mentioning how, hey, you can't talk about international terrorism here, which indicates he does think the only way you can call anyone a terrorist or indicate terrorism has happened is that they have to be foreign terrorists. Hence why he thinks it's only Islamic terrorism, which he thinks is just that's the base definition, you know. So yeah. So one more clip here as Ted Cruz continues to grovel and try to get back in good graces.
I wasn't saying that the thousands of peaceful protesters supporting Donald Trump are somehow terrorists. I wasn't saying the millions of patriots across the country supporting President Trump are terrorists, and that's what a lot of people have misunderstood that comment.
Wait a second, but hold on. What you just said doesn't make sense. So if somebody assaults a cop, he should be charged and go to jail. I couldn't agree more. We have said that for years. But that person's still not a terrorist. How many people have been charged with terrorism? So why'd you do it?
So Tucker, let me answer you directly. The reason I use that word for a decade, I have referred to people who violently assault police officers as terrorists. That being said, Tucker, I agree with you. It was a mistake to say that yesterday, and the reason is what you just said, which is we've now had a year of Democrats in the media twisting words and trying to say that all of us are terrorists, trying to say you're a terrorist, I'm a terrorist.
Wait. Can I ask, hold on, you work in the, I guess I just don't believe you. And I mean that with respect.
Look, I'm the one leading the fight in the Senate against this garbage.
Are you, Ted?
Oh,
he's definitely leading the fight, but he's leading the fight for getting on his knee to bow.
That was an open-handed slap, boy. Okay, and what did Ted do? Like, oh, yeah, you're right, Tucker. I'm a dummy, Tucker. Bye-bye. Ted Cruz's political career completely over. Go ahead, Lucid.
This is Ted Cruz classically trying to have it both ways, right? Like he's been integral to the idea of the Republican Party for a long time, right? Ted Cruz was like classically the domestic policy advisor for George W. Bush all the way back in '99. Like he's been around for a while. He was, as Tucker mentioned, like a Supreme Court contender at one point. And he wants to stay beholden to that old establishment part of the Republican Party where they constantly like appeal to the police no matter what. He constantly like appeals to at least this idea that if you challenge authority in a certain way, that's still bad. But that doesn't like vibe with the new, more populist leanings that Tucker Carlson and Stephen Bannon and others are going towards, right? Like that doesn't play for him, and that doesn't play with the message that Tucker Carlson wants to put out to his audience.
So that's a great point by Lucid. And so I wanted to get to, wait, what is Tucker actually getting at here, right? And I actually, again, this is, I know it's a shocking turn of events, but I say this because we actually do an honest show. I think Tucker's onto something, which is that I'm now seeing, and you heard us talking about it for the last couple of weeks on air, a number of Republicans now going, nah, let's get away from this stuff, right? Let's get away from January 6th and pretending Trump won the election. And you saw Brian Kilmeade do it this morning on Fox News. And so we've been showing it to you as they're doing it. My theory on this is not a complicated one. It's the same theory every time because it's obvious, follow the money. I think Republican donors have said, enough of this crap. This is destabilizing. We don't like it. Stability helps the markets, and we're worried about this. So hey, all of you dogs, turn around now and start saying that Trump's not that big a deal. He should stop whining, etc. So I think Lucid's right that Ted Cruz is trying to play both sides, and there's such funny fake populists because Tucker Carlson on his online show wears his flannel shirt to tell you, I'm a common man. Dude, you used to wear a bow tie. Keep it real, right? And Ted Cruz, before clean shaven, oh yes, donors, I would like your money and I'm from Harvard, right? Now he's got the beard on, oh yeah, I'm a populist man. And every once in a while though, when the donors tell him, sick boy, sick, he goes, terrorist. And then Tucker goes, heal boy, heal. And he comes on because he's a natural born beta. And that's why I get so frustrated with Democrats. These guys are so weak. You just have to push them a little bit and they'll fall over. And Democrats can't even muster that up. Look at how weak he is. I'm so sorry, Tucker. Tucker could have said in the middle of that segment, oh, by the way, I'm going out with your wife later tonight. And Cruz would have been like, oh, you're so right, I'm so dumb. She doesn't know you should take her.
I always wonder exactly what, well, not always, but in this particular case, after that interview ends, you know when you have a really bad either like experience or back in school when you get called on and everybody's watching, you don't have the answer. That was for a full however many minutes that Ted Cruz was going through trying to explain himself and get back into good graces. And there was annoyance, there was waving off. Those types of things just don't really happen. And we've heard these stories about how, in general, many politicians, pundits, all of them don't really like Ted Cruz. They kind of put up with him. And so when he actually crosses the line for them with a little bit of truth, then they're like, oh, here's my chance. I can lay into him and nobody's gonna stop me because no one else likes this guy. But
Jared, you know, that's a great point, and it made me remember. You remember when Ted Cruz was considered the most right-wing Republican in the country? That wasn't that long ago. That was about 5 years ago, and even other Republicans would, like I think even Lindsey Graham said it, like if he died, no one would mind, like because he was so stubborn in being a fake right-wing populist, and he'd hold up everything, etc. Now he's considered way too soft and moderate for the extreme right wing. Like the Republican Party has gone so far right, it's so extreme that Ted Cruz being considered a moderate is insanity. But we got more.
Yes, well, I want to jump down really fast because the piling on, you want the piling on?
Yeah.
Let's get the piling on. I was gonna jump past the piling on because, you know, this guy's been beaten long enough. But I just wanna go to the first of his tweets. He had a series of tweets, Ted Cruz did, after that appearance, which again, man, I'm not sure if anybody's advising him or if he thinks these things through. But after that embarrassing moment, then he went on Twitter, posted the interview, and tried to explain himself again. But this is the first of like 3 or 4 tweets. Yesterday, I used a dumb choice of words. And unfortunately, a lot of people are misunderstanding what I meant there with Tucker. And if you click on that, you'll see it. I was not calling the thousands of peaceful protesters on January 6th terrorists. I would never do so. Then he started talking about
that's actually literally what you did.
Yeah, and then now it's Democrats' fault and all that.
Yeah, sure it is, Ted. No, look, this isn't winning him any favors with anybody. I mean,
and I think you see that on Tucker's show, right? He realizes what he did. He realizes that he made a misstep. And then when Tucker calls him out on it, he's like, oh no, please don't do this to me. You can't do this to me. I'm just starting to coalesce power again. I really want to be president one day, guys.
And by the way,
and nobody likes this guy.
Yeah, and Lucid, Tucker, my theory is that Tucker's gonna run one day, okay? And so he just humiliated one of his top opponents. Now, if you're gonna vote, if you're a right winger and you're watching that, who are you gonna vote for, Tucker or Ted? It's over. It's over. All of Ted Cruz's ambitions, all of the pathetic groveling that he did to Donald Trump and everyone else, all of those lies and machinations for Ted Cruz, all gone to waste. His wife humiliated, his dad humiliated, all of it wasted. In that moment right there, Tucker's the alpha, he's the beta, and especially in the Republican world, you're done, son.
Old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? And I go, what are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps f***ing cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong, I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck.
But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the f***? You said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Bergquam. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the 3 of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Easily.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Craig starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back.
Let's go to the fifth clip here really fast, just because we also have more people looking for opportunities. Marjorie Taylor Greene and also Matt Gaetz had a little bit of a joint a dunk session on Ted Cruz as well. It piles on. Let's listen.
I think Senator Cruz is smart enough to know, since he's an attorney, that no one's been charged with terrorism, just like no one has been charged with insurrection. I think that was very irresponsible of him to call them terrorists, and I completely disagree.
And the establishment will never love you, Ted. You can bend over at bended knee for them, but they're just not going to love you.
Apparently, neither will these guys. There's not much love in any direction for Ted Cruz, and this is the opening. They're allowed to do it now. So, lastly, if Ted wants to go ahead, by the way, Lynn Wood, Roger Stone, Sebastian Gorka, they all piled on. It was a murderer's row. But Ted Cruz has one last opportunity left to get back in the good graces, because it worked one time. Let's look.
Hi, this is Ted Cruz calling. I was calling to encourage you to come out and vote on Election Day. I just wanted to encourage you to come out and vote. Thank you, and God bless you.
Beta! That's him phone banking for Donald Trump after Donald Trump slapped his wife and dad around. I mean, is there a more pathetic toad in American politics? And so that was a glorious funeral to Ted Cruz's career. But having said that, of course, the giant problem here is now anyone who ever disagrees with what I would consider the fascist wing of the Republican Party knows that they're going to get assassinated by Tucker Carlson, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's going to scare the bejesus out of every other coward Republican politician, which is pretty much every Republican politician. So they're going to cower and snivel just like Ted Cruz did, but they're going to know to keep their mouth shut and never disagree with the extreme right wing because they're going to get annihilated like this. So that is not good news for the country. Yes, Ted Cruz might be phone banking for Tucker Carlson one day, but that's also not good news for the country. Carlson is the one that went over and got tips on fascism from Viktor Orban in Hungary. Tucker's not, subtle about his fascist intentions. So that's him eliminating one of his political opponents on national television. And Cruz didn't even understand what was happening as he's getting humiliated. And because it's in his nature, he's a cuck by nature. So that catastrophe was years in the making.
Man. Yeah, I think a lot of Republicans got some messaging notes from Ted Cruz this week, right? Like and obviously, I think if I remember correctly, he's actually used terrorists to describe the people that attacked the cops specifically before. This is the first time that he offhandedly decided not to join those things, and that's to his detriment. And I think a lot of other fence setters just like him are going to have to realize that that loss in messaging, especially when faced with somebody like Tucker Carlson.
And by the way, just final note here, the real insurrection was Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro with their so-called Green Bay sweep, planning to steal the election by decertifying it and then sending it back to the states where their goons in the Republican state legislatures were supposed to reverse the results with no evidence at all. That was an actual planned coup against America. The guys who did the violence, they didn't have a plan. They were idiot rioters. What were you going to do? Just keep the Capitol and hope tanks show up? So it was pure madness on the part of the rioters. But the people who are the most guilty and are actually trying to undermine our democracy are Tucker Carlson's buddies, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro.
And oddly, Ted Cruz, who was joined in on that plan.
Yeah, that's right. And if anyone should be called an insurrectionist, it should be Ted Cruz. You're right, Chair. I'm so glad you said that, because the very first name that Navarro mentioned when talking about the coup that they had planned was Ted Cruz. He said, we had Gosar and we had Cruz, and we had this whole thing ready to go. And thank God that plan didn't work. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
You are the media and you are much needed.
TYT! TYT!
The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Cenk and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
The people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
Across the map are going to be so tight and so close that it is likely going to be very difficult to call this on election night.
The twin forces behind the Biden candidacy, the billionaires and the Bolsheviks.
Arizona, 19 million. For the vice president, 9 million, a little over 9 million for President Trump.
We are desperate for Donald Trump to not be president anymore because he's fascist and is a threat to our democracy. And we said that from day one. Yes, we want Biden to beat Trump. Is that clear enough?
It is increasingly difficult for the American public to get any sort of truth.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that. People are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different ways. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights, or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry? Back on TYT, JR and Lucid with you guys. All right, JR, let's do it.
Fox News host Laura Ingraham, she's sick and tired of Dick Cheney, former Vice President Dick Cheney, constantly going after conservative Republican leadership. I mean, she just had enough of it. Laugh along with me as we consider that possibility. Now, she is upset with him, but this did come after Dick Cheney attended Thursday's January 6th anniversary events alongside his daughter, Representative Liz Cheney. So as they were going through all the events and remembering things that happened afterwards, he was speaking with a cabal of reporters as he was trying to move along, and he had this to say.
Republican leadership's handling of this, of the reaction to January 6th.
It's not a leadership that resembles any of the folks I knew when I was here.
So from under his mask and under a camera literally being in his neck, he did say, if you couldn't tell there, he doesn't recognize this Republican leadership. It's nothing like the people that he knew when he was there for 10 years. So bashing all of this leadership, you know, McConnell, McCarthy, all these guys, and fringe people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who were also in leadership de facto. Anyways, after this all went down, Laura Ingraham wasn't liking this tone, so she even went after the vice president, former vice president, with this.
There Darth was on Capitol Hill today. Dick Cheney representing the mastodons of the Bush age, decrying what's happened to his old party. First, let me say I've always liked Dick Cheney personally, and I defended him when Nancy Pelosi and others trashed him. But the condition he and George W. left the party in 2008 was this. They had lost the House, the Senate, and of course then the presidency. In May of 2008, George W. Bush was the most unpopular president in modern history, with a 71% disapproval rating. That's worse than Biden's. And by December of that year, Cheney himself was earning similar accolades in the Veep category. So all the latter-day reinvention won't change the fact that the Bush-Cheney policies proved thoroughly unpopular. Some of them I actually supported. But economic collapse, endless wars. In January 2009, W's approval rating stood at 22%. And Dick Cheney comes to Capitol Hill to decry the direction of the party?
Can you believe it? No, okay, this is what the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, which has now become the most of the Republican Party now, has done. She pointed out in that little diatribe that she supported the things that Cheney did when he was in office. She supported things that W did with him while they were in office. But they had horrible approval numbers. They had these ongoing forever wars. They were destroying the economy. It was a horrible situation that I supported completely. Well, sounds like you were wrong, Laura. It's really weird that you can talk about how bad they were, which you're right about, but then still say, no, I don't want any of you guys to forget. I loved this guy, but now I'm on to the next one to love because that's how I continue to stay relevant and continue to keep myself in their good graces. That's how this whole thing works. Just move on to the next. If they tell you what to say, you say it and you do it, and then you move on and you make sure that you're needed, you're still necessary for the party.
Yeah, so everyone in this story is awful. So let's break down the nuances. So when Dick Cheney was there, all the Democrats came up and said hi to him, most especially Nancy Pelosi. Okay. Well, you knuckleheads, the one thing that Laura Ingraham was right about is that Dick Cheney is a deeply, deeply unpopular person in America. When he left office, his popularity number was 9%. I've never seen a politician in the single digits, and that was Dick Cheney, okay? So what did the Democrats do? In their infinite stupidity, they wrapped their arms around a guy who's polling at 9%, right? So they're like, yeah, we're on Team Cheney. No, you schmucks. But look at that brilliant turnaround that the right wing did. Well, Laura didn't just kind of agree with Dick Cheney on some of the issues. No, she agreed with Dick Cheney on 100% of the issues. I was around. She said, how dare these Democrats, terrorists supporting soft Democrats. We should invade. Take Cheney's right. We should torture. We should wiretap. Laura Ingraham was on board for all of their abuses. But now that they're unpopular, she turns around and dumps it on the Democrats' laps. And Pelosi's like, oh great, look at this great gift I got. It's toxic, it's nuclear, get away from it. But yes, you have to provide the nuance too that in this one case where Cheney's saying, hey, maybe we should stick with democracy, he's also correct about that. I don't like having the penguin on our side. She called him, Laura Ingraham calling him Darth Vader. Man. We used to call him Darth Vader. And she would say, she would basically call us terrorists for calling him Darth Vader. And now she turns around and does that. Guys, if you're watching Fox News, do you think they're honest? Do you think they're honest? These are the same people who loved Dick Cheney at the time. You can go back and watch any of their clips. Hannity, O'Reilly, Ingraham, they defended him 100%. Now it's inconvenient because now they want to go further right wing than Dick Cheney. And now he supports democracy. The one decent thing he's done in his life. And they're like, put on Dick Cheney. God damn it, man. Look at Darth Vader now. All of a sudden in favor of democracy. Don't you know we've become even more monstrous than when you were here? Lucid.
Yeah, I think that's actually exactly right, Cenk. Like this was a Laura Ingraham that like mid 2000s to late 2000s was an avowed war hawk, completely in favor of everything that was going on in Iraq at the time, completely in favor of all the decisions that were made by the Cheney and Bush administration. And now to turn around, I guess it makes sense for Laura Ingraham. She's always been kind of a ladder climber. She always has like supported like current leadership, even when it comes to like disavowing like who she supported like beforehand. So it does make sense in her spot, but it is like, it doesn't read it as anything but hypocritical for people that have been paying attention to her long enough, right?
Yeah, and guys, that's the other thing. Look, if we turned around like that, I would hope that you wouldn't trust us. You name it, man. If all of a sudden we're like, well, George W. Bush, not so bad. Were all those wars, the Iraq war, was it so bad? I don't think it was so bad. You'd be like, these guys, what? No, you guys hated the Iraq war. You guys screamed day and night about how awful the Iraq war was. You would question us. But that's the amazing thing about right-wing viewers. They're like, they saw Laura Ingraham. They saw Laura Ingraham and they heard Laura Ingraham say how awesome those wars were and that anyone who disagreed was un-American. Now she's pretending like, oh, Dick Cheney, we never liked him in the first place. How do you not see she's an unbelievable liar?
Well, she pointed out that she agreed with him a lot, so maybe that was her little caveat to be like, no, I was doing this stuff, but he's gone too far with this whole democracy thing. Yeah. That's just the principle that I can't get on board with.
No, but Jared, good point. Like, I would love to ask Laura Ingraham, what is the new thing about Dick Cheney? Because you admit that you agreed with some of his opinions. That's a lie. You agreed with all of his opinions, right? And you were his top cheerleader. So what made you change your mind? The only thing he has changed, well, he hasn't changed on it. I assume he was for democracy here in America before. I'm not positive. I guess, right? But what made you change your mind on Dick Cheney? The only thing you disagree with him on is democracy. You don't want it, and he does.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Well, we gotta
take a break. Yeah. Jesus, Lord mercy. Okay, we're gonna take on the rest of the media as usual because they deserve it when we come back.
Old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell.
I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps f***ing cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the f***? You said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Bergquam. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Hey, man.
Easily.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John,
man.
come back.
Back on TYT, Jank, JR, and Lucid. Just real quick on Twitch, D. Cashmere gifted 5 subs. I wanted to mention it. But Valerie Fisher said, love JR. I'll be there for the watch list. And Fester said, watch Lucid, funny streamer, smart streamer. I love that. And Stace Face said, I'm so excited for a JR show. So that's nice to hear as well. All right, speaking of JR's show, here we go, more.
Yes. As many people commemorated and remembered everything from January 6th yesterday from a year ago, of course, many conservatives, Republicans were folding their arms and petulantly whining, complaining about the whole thing. After it was all said and done, NBC News' Kristen Welker was talking at the Jen Psaki's press conference, and she had the question of the day about how do we get this unity back? And wait till you hear who she's blaming for the problem. Listen.
Most of the people who attended these ceremonies today were Democrats. There were some Republican lawmakers. You do have this pushback from the former president and from some of his supporters, and polls show that there are still a number of Republicans who believe that the election was stolen from the former president. Does President Biden feel as though he's done enough to unify the country? And what more does he need to do, given the sharp divides that we still see on display today?
So, I'll try to talk over everyone screaming at that question right now. So what she asked was, what is it that Joe Biden can do more of to make sure there's unity as we're on here January 6th at the time? And all these people were very upset about things you guys are saying about what happened a year ago, reality. How are you gonna bring people into more unity with the country? What else can Joe Biden do? Well, I wonder who else she asked that question to.
So look, it's so frustrating because there's two guilty parties here. One is mainstream media. Like, what an absurd question. So Republicans egg their supporters on to do a riot on January 6th. And then when they're commemorating January 6th and the people that died, et cetera, the Republicans don't show up because they're the ones who started the riot in the first place. And especially in the House where you had nearly 100 Republicans who wanted to do a coup and said, don't certify the election. We don't care who won. We know that we lost all the court cases. We lost over 60 of them. We know we don't have a single shred of evidence. We don't care. We hate democracy. And we don't want Joe Biden to be president. We want Trump even though he lost, right? So they don't show up. And then Welker makes it seem like it's Biden's fault. Well, why didn't you get the Republicans to show up? I don't know. Is it my fault that they rioted? What kind of an insane question is that? They were trying to prevent Biden from being president. But on the other hand, the second guilty party is Biden himself, because he encourages this kind of nonsense. Oh, I'm gonna reach out to Republicans. Oh, I'm gonna get Republicans to agree. Well, what does that do? It hands your presidency over to the Republicans, because then you need permission from them to do anything. Because if you don't, then the media comes in and goes, oh, you didn't get Republicans' permission. You didn't participate, ha ha. And Biden goes, I'm so sorry, okay, I'll try to kiss Republican ass more. Why don't you stand up and be a man and fight the other guys? No, look, Biden's a. What is he? I don't know if he's deeply incompetent or malicious or both, okay? But you think we elected you because of your nonsense talk about bipartisanship and how you were gonna bring the country together? We all knew the country wasn't gonna come back together magically after you got elected. You're not Magic Man. Nobody thought that other than people who work in media, okay? The rest of us are living the real world. We elected you because your name is not Donald Trump, period. So that's actually the exact opposite of what you're trying to do. People voted for you because you weren't a Republican. And now you say, oh, well, people voted for me to work with Republicans. Exact opposite. So I have no sympathy for him. Lucid.
This is Biden's MO. This is the guy. You remember all those years ago, right? When Harry Reid took Mitch McConnell's proposal for the tax cliff and threw it in the fire and said, I don't think so. I don't think I'll be agreeing on this today. And Mitch said, isn't there anybody else who might agree? And Biden said, yeah, I think I'll be there. This is the guy. This is the guy that wants to come to the table. This is the guy that wants to continue to humor them. Continue to give them the benefit of the doubt, no matter how many times they spit in his face, no matter how many times they offer him the worst. He's just like, well, all right, guys, maybe this time, right? Maybe this time, like they'll actually like listen to us and they'll come together and we can be like one country again.
That's actually,
like, no, man, you need to have a harsh hand about this. You need to talk to these are the people that post 1-6 still sat down and said, nah, I'd still like to certify this guy actually.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say one last thing to all the media out there that live in an alternate reality. Okay, there is no world where these Republican extremists agree with voting rights or police reform or
Absolutely
the $15 minimum wage or anything that would help the average American. Stop calling it 50-50. Oh, why didn't they show up? It's Biden's fault for them not showing up. They don't like democracy. And when you make it seem like Republicans are honest actors, you enable fascism. It's coming. They're telling you it's coming. They're in the middle of doing it right now. And mainstream media are the only people in the country who can't figure it out. They're like, what are we, reporters? Oh, okay. Oh, looks like they hate democracy and they try to destroy it. But no, I'm gonna call it 50-50. You guys are unbearable and not remotely journalists.
This is a party that's had a decades-long political project in the subversion of democracy and the upending of the will of the people, through ventures like the Federalist Project, through ventures like the Heritage Foundation. Now you're like, no, listen, I think we can still pull their ear though. I think we can still work with them. Like, no, that's literally not how their politics work.
All right, one more story.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT! TYT!
The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Tank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
Across the map are going to be so tight and so close that it is likely going to be very difficult to call this on election night.
The twin forces behind the Biden candidacy, the billionaires and the Bolsheviks.
Arizona, 19 million. For the vice president, 9 million, a little over 9 million for President Trump.
We are desperate for Donald Trump to not be president anymore because he's fascist and is a threat to our democracy. And we said that from day one. Yes, we want Biden to beat Trump. Is that clear enough?
It is increasingly difficult for the American public to get any sort of truth.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that. People are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different waves. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights, or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry?
Again, yesterday, as January 6th was being commemorated, remembered, Nancy Pelosi decided to come up with a different way to make sure that we feel the moment. Let's watch.
The conversation, we're privileged to have a contribution from one of the great creative talents of our time, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Among the words he said and in the music, "We'll make it right for you. If we lay a strong enough foundation, we'll pass it on to you and we'll give the world to you."
Dear Theodosia, what to say to you? You have my eyes, you have your mother's name. When you came into the world, you cried, and it broke my heart. Dedicating every day to you.
Oh, you're so pathetic.
Oh no.
When the fascists came, we sang to them. I mean, the Weimar Republic has got to be laughing their ass off going, they thought we were weak. You hit him with Hamilton? You hit him with Hamilton. Lucid. Go ahead, Lucid.
I honestly, I'm not sure. Like this is the point where I feel like reality has like broken, because I don't understand why you would like bring Lin-Manuel Miranda. Like, I know obviously he's got like a show on Broadway that's vaguely political, even though it doesn't cover some of the more tenuous parts of the history at that time. But like, why that? Why do you think like this is going to be the thing to unite people? This is going to show that we are a strong country that is going to get like carry on democracy. Like, no, I mean, other than the investment in Hamilton by Nancy Pelosi, I don't get it.
No, honestly, Lucid, I have an answer. It's because they're deeply elitist and they can't see straight. Yeah. And everyone in their bubble thinks, oh, you got Hamilton? You got Hamilton to fight the fascists? Oh my God, it's gonna be great. Oh, can I be there?
Finally.
Yeah, and so
Manuel, the guy that wants to privatize Puerto Rico, fantastic. I can't wait to have him here.
Look, they're unbearable, and they've turned the working class party into a feckless, elitist, ridiculous party that is so out of touch. And the Republicans who are so corrupt and awful now seem like the populists, because Nancy Pelosi is obsessed with doing stupid stunts like this. I'll say something even more controversial. I didn't like Hamilton. I watched the first half hour and then I turned it off because I couldn't stand it. I'm like, are they ever gonna talk? It's just nonstop singing. I hated it. So all my friends and every other person out there, I know it's you pray and worship Hamilton, hated it. Okay.
More of that in the bonus episode. This is gonna be great.
Good.
Yeah, in the bonus episode, we're gonna kick more ass, okay? Couple of crazy stories for you guys. TYT.com/join, or if you're on YouTube, hit that join button below. We'll see you there, members.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding, because this is C-SPAN, and anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a Velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a. Call us now at Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.